Good evening. This is the Elliott Wave daily update for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 for Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. I'm going to start with the S&P 500 tonight. I'm going to start on the 4-hour chart. To do a quick update of where we are, I continue to count up a minute fifth wave, which began down here off of the April expiration low, so the April 19th low, and that was at 49.63. And from that level, we're looking for 5 waves up to put in a minute fifth wave. So within it, there's going to be minuet waves to begin with, and we have minuet 1, 2, and 3. And so we've been working on minuet 4. Now, as I left it yesterday, as we came back from the holiday weekend, that we had this probability that my minuet 4 was complete at the sell-off that we got on the 23rd of May. And so, and I had marked it as such, and then leaving this a decent rally as sub-minuet wave 1 of minuet wave 5. And then we had a small wave 2, and we looked like we could just continue to rally and pick up where we left off and just continue higher. Well, that did not happen, as we all know now. And in fact, it continued to look like, well, we had a possibility it was just a deeper wave 2 until very close to the close. And we started to really come down. And then in this after hour, which actually is still in progress right now, we've really begun to slide, and we dropped below that low. So we dropped below the 52.73.5. And so far, we've now gotten down to 52.68. So I don't think it's done quite yet. So I rearranged. So here we still have minuet wave 3. We're inside still, minuet wave 4. And instead of it being wave 4 here, it ends up being an A wave of 4. This being the B B of 4. And now we're in that C of 4. And that still seems to be rolling out. And right now, I mean, we can consider that it could complete anywhere between here and here. So if we just do some very quick fibs, let me bring this down. Let's go take a look at it on the hourly chart. So we can go inside this and we can see that we have the A, we have the B. Now this is where it gets kind of ugly, because it just is this just a 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're dropping in the 5. That's about the only way that I can really look at this. As before, I kind of made maybe an ABC, and we put a 2, and then we were going to rally up and out of this, and we did actually kind of thought it was, and then came overnight, and then came today. So while this was mostly consolidation, what happened to the end of the day still could be consolidation, but the buyer stepped aside. So we're just seeing now that this is just pretty good deep right now, about 14, 15 points. And so I'm looking for a little bit more. Now, so where are our fibs? Our fibs where wave C would be 100% of wave A sits down in here at 52.44.25. And then outside of that, if I pull this back open, and I just bring it, well, let me just do it this way. This might work. So here is where we've always had our area for this fourth wave. And again, color code now, right? That's what I'm trying to do. So we understand that's the the minuet degree. This would be a minuet wave 4, the area for minuet wave 4. Here are the support areas on a fib basis for that fourth wave. Now, yesterday, or as this was left, coming into yesterday, so before the holiday, was that, well, we had the possibility that, well, that was the completion point. It had dipped down, it had come down in an ABC. And so not necessarily getting all the way in here, but it came into the fib zone, let's call it. Now, what we're doing now is we're down even a little bit closer to the upper side of this previous fourth. Now, our first previous fourth was right here. Well, that got taken out. So then we went to the next level, which is down here. And so not that this this actually would be the previous 4 of one lesser degree. But this is where the fibs kind of come in on the whole size of this minuet wave 3. So again, thinking that was done, nope, we're extending. So it's an A, B, we're coming down in a C wave, 52, 44, 25, then 52, 34. And I'm looking for that completion point for the minuet wave 4. Then we're going to start up again, and then I'll re-add those fibs, and those fibs that actually go with minuet wave 1 up to minuet wave 4 to give us where minuet wave 5 can come in. Now, what are we completing as we get up there? Well, we're completing a minute 5th wave to complete minor wave 3 here in the S&P. So now we're beginning to look at some differences between the S&P and the NASDAQ, which is not overly concerning for me, but we'll see how this all plays out. Because again, as I have gone over, because of this big picture, let me just pull this out again and open it. Yeah, that's not going to work. Okay, let's go this way. Well, that's not going to work. Unfortunately, I got to bring it all the way out so I can see. So much has taken place. So there is the minuet third. And so what we're putting out here is that I've gone back, and let me go all the way to that weekly. Because here, if we're coming off of that October 2022 low, then we have intermediate 1 and 2, because this would have been, right, if we're working off the premise that it's a primary 4th wave and not a primary A wave, and this is all a primary B wave, we've now exceeded levels on the upside that would have kept that in place. So with that in mind, it is intermediate 1 and 2, and then we start up where we have minor 1 and 2, but then you see this is where the hiccup came between the S&P and the NASDAQ. Because in the NASDAQ, this was a deeper correction here in the S&P, so it cannot be 1, 2, 3, 4, because we can see that the overlap is very real, and that just is not going to work. So then it goes 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, which makes this for the S&P kind of carry on maybe longer than the NASDAQ, but we'll see, because now I have to walk them both through, and let's see what happens in between. So back here, let me finish up here and then go over and we'll look at that same scenario in the NASDAQ. So here in the S&P, we have minuet wave 3, looking for minuet wave 4. We still can have more. It can happen overnight. It definitely can happen overnight. Now, what we've got going on is NVIDIA came out and talked about an H100 and H200. I'm not sure if those are chips or part of it or whatever the situation is, but came out and made a little adjustment to demand levels. And so suddenly, NVIDIA is now going to come back down off of the closing highs that they had, and it had traded higher. So, and that's kind of, bringing down some of the other rest of the market. But in any case, we could see this complete overnight, get itself down to 52.44, or complete right now. We are putting in new lows. So the fibs are there for a guide, not necessarily saying that that's where it has to go. We might come back in an hour when Globex starts and they decide that was enough and they just start to bring it up. Then again, don't know what's going to happen when the Asian market open or what's going to happen when the European markets open, and how that's going to affect our market as well. One other thing of note is that the bond market, so the treasuries, were pretty heavily sold today. So we are seeing the yields rise in the 30 and the 10 and the 5, 30-year bond, 10-year note, 5-year note. The yields are rising. And so against this big article that we're talking about that we saw in Barron's, so there's all of this conflict going on. And tomorrow we do have some additional data coming out, which may or may not support much of anything from in terms of what the Fed may or may not do. So again, what we have tomorrow is initial jobless claims, GDP, the first revision for GDP for the first quarter of 2024. And it looks like they're going to be revising it down. Then we have advanced U.S. trade balance in goods, retail inventories, and wholesale inventories, plus pending home sales tomorrow. So that's when we got to get a little bit of a look. Now, the bigger one is going to come on Friday, folks. The bigger one on Friday is that we have personal income, personal spending. Then at the same time, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, we get that PCE index. And what is a PCE index that I at least have read and been told before? That is one of the major indexes that the Fed uses to put things into perspective for themselves in terms of, what is inflation really doing or not doing. Now, what is being forecast right here for PCE is that the core is actually gone. It's actually improved just a little bit. Year over year is remaining the same, and everything else is pretty much coming in unchanged. We shall see. Bond market, I'm not sure what they're preparing for. Now, back in our chart. So we're going to be looking for this to come down. Consolidation, that's pretty much what, again, is taking place. Is anything changed in terms of the market? Well, not really. It is a pullback. It is a consolidation. NVIDIA is still going to go do a stock split on the 7th of June. So that's what continues to fall into play here in terms of stock movement within indexes. So NVIDIA remains in play. And whether that's going to be, we're just going to have some adjusting going on, or people are determining, it's like, you know what, maybe I don't really need to have additional shares at a lower price. So they're going to they're going to get out now, maybe, don't know, but a lot of things kind of go on. So everything else does seem to remain underway. So I'm going to continue to look at this as like a consolidation. We had a tremendous rally in this minuet third wave. It was a tremendous rally. We had one slice down, and then I thought, well, that could have been all of it, or we need the additional, and that's what I believe we're getting right now. That additional leg down the C wave. Once it's complete, I'd be looking for it all just to start up again and looking for it to move higher. Now, what would be a signal that it is all over? And Michael, you need to go back and you need to recount this whole thing. That would have to come on a break, at least on the minuet degree. This 4 would have to come all the way down and break here. Now, we're going to get, I think, clearer signs if it's going to come into that, because I think if they're going to drop it, it is going to drop this speed, but bigger, take longer, not stop at these supports, just start going. So support right now, 52.44, 52.34. Then when we start to break, we're breaking 5,200. There is support at 5,200, major support at 5,200. Just like we have resistance above all of this, but we need to now just check and make sure how all of this is going to work out. Is that now coming back down again? So are we getting these lines in the sand like before we had 5,200, 5,300, 5,400? Are they now making adjustments there as to where they want to start to place things for where the market may or may not go? Yet to be determined. But I would say that we do have support at 52.44, 34, and then again, stronger support at 5,200. If we start breaking those levels, from 5,200 to stronger support will not be found until 5,000. I mean, really strong floor, not please don't break this level type support. And so, but what we look for here, if it does happen, and I'm not saying that it is, it would be very dramatic. And I think it would be not just out of the blue, it would have to become something would happen that the market gets a surprise or a shock. That could drive it. And there's the break. The ultimate break would be 51.28. We start to get stronger hands if it starts to break 51.50. We get another hint when it starts to break 5,200. So we have markers to give us danger signs, danger warning. Right now, not really thinking about it. This is what I'm thinking about. Going to contain this. We get down into this, possibly. That's 34. Then we're right there. We're inside this zone. And that would be great. And then we get there or go low. We mark it, and we start to rally again. And once we get that, then I will, again, reconnect minuet wave 1 to minuet wave 4 to give us that minuet 5 levels. All right, now moving averages, at least on the hourly chart, they're all reacting. You can see now we're starting to break on at least on the hourly chart, and that did not help us today. We started to break below. The 50 is now coming below the 200, which has been flat. Look at how flat this has been during this whole period. Now still flat, but we've got everything coming down below. And that actually today is what helped contribute. Actually, this was yesterday, but it helped contribute to the intensity of the selling. And the fact that now that the 50s come down and crossed it brought that. So technically, they sell because of the break. And whether it stops and we start taking it back up, or does it continue adding fuel? Because I have to tell you, now that if the 50 comes in a little bit heavier here, we're going to be lined up to go down, right? Remember, it is the 200 or the 50s below it, and then the 20s below that, and the 13 sits on the bottom. That's an alignment to go down according to moving averages. So we need this to kind of just find this low, start to build back up, while the 200 remains basically flat. Then this all starts to rise, and these all start to come back up, and then it remains the one in the bottom, and everybody else goes up above it, and then it all looks good. All right, let's go over and take a look at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ still sitting up, way up here, whereas the S&P is coming down and already broke below that. The NASDAQ still sits way up here, and now it's closed. So, excuse me, what we got going on, maybe the same thing. I did go ahead and change the labeling because I do feel that both those markets need to kind of move in sync on this one. But if they don't, and we start to turn and go up from here, well, then this goes back to where this is wave 4, and this is 1, and just a deeper 2. Now, that being the case, then I'd have to put this back up, and I'll just put it in now. There's going to be a lot of crossing lines here, but remember, this would show you where we'd be marking for a fourth, not the fourth wave, the fifth wave, the minuet wave 5. And the first marker is 19,043. Let me just go in there and fix all of this. I can leave all that in there. And we're just going to put, oops, I'm going to change the colors because we're going to keep them together so that you'll see how I label in the color and how this then fits in with it. Okay, so come on, get out of the way. There we go. Okay, so here we have, if indeed, okay, so what I've also got down, I've got an A, B, and then if this is the C wave, there's your first line. C would equal A at 18,578, which does take us below, yeah, takes us, because the low here is 628, and just take us to 78. So nicely done. Get us in there, get this done. We can put a wave 4. Otherwise, if we turn from here and we start to go up, number one, we need to break above 966, and then we have to break above 980 to give conclusive, good word, huh? Conclusive evidence that this indeed was 4 and this is 1, 2. And then we're going to turn and we're going to rally. Then we're looking at these numbers again. 19,043 to 19,304, I'll call it. And that would be to complete the minuet 5th wave. And in turn, once we're done there, and this is where the differences come in. So we've got the minuet 5th wave for the minute 5th wave for the completion of minute 5th, minor 5, intermediate wave 2. Now, this is where the difference is. Remember, I just showed you on the other one where we had 1, 2, 1, 2, and then the 3, 4, and the forward overlapped in the S&P overlapped wave 1. Well, here it does not. So I find it, I started to find it problematic to say 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then have this all kind of be wave 3, a minute wave 3 and a minute wave 4, and then a minute wave 5 just to finish minor wave 3, and then another minor 4 and a minor 5 to finish intermediate wave 3. It just puts the NASDAQ up here. Now, could it happen? Yeah, it could. It could, but what do we got left that's actually going to propel the market to move that high when the bonds are kind of being sold, when the yield is going up, when we still have data that likely is going to show that we have that inflation is remaining a problem. So you start to realize, like, what are we going to hang our hat on to build a rally that strong? What needs to happen? A lot of things would need to change before we're going to find the backing to bring the market up that much. So in the meantime, here we sit and we work with what we have. So again, I'm just going to go back down to that 4-hour chart where we have minute 3, minute 4. This is of that minor wave 5 to complete intermediate wave 3. Once we get that done, we have minor wave 5 to complete intermediate wave 3. And then this is going to be the zone for the correction. So one way or the other, we've got some larger corrections looming. I mean, this, of course, will come in first. And this is the secondary. So this is going to get interesting. Because outside of all of this, we still have a lot more upside to do according to these counts that continue to push things higher. Now, once again, I will say that I think a lot can change once NVIDIA splits. And right now with the stock here, it's going to split, and the stock price is going to be, say, $114 versus 1,130, 38. So that's going to make a big difference. Volatility will decrease. Number one, in NVIDIA. Premium will decrease in NVIDIA. The moves won't have so much power where we're going to see NVIDIA go up like we did yesterday, $75, or go down $75. So the volatility decreases just even in how the price of the stock as it moves around. And that could put us into just a sideways move. If all the other stocks would continue to go that way. Now, a lot can happen. I don't like to go out and say, well, this, and that. We can only go by, well, this is what I would look for. So we still have a lot of work to do in terms of finishing up if this is going to be a, primary fifth wave up. A lot more work to do before we reach the ultimate top. What's going to propel it? We have a lot of things yet to happen. So we're going to have to be patient and let that. Right now, though, I'm going to bring it back down. Let's take it back to that hourly chart. And let's just take a look and open it. Right again, here is the previous fourth of one lesser degree. We got down into that here, you notice. So that part worked. We may go back and put that here and put that still here. I've left, again, these are on for the fifth wave. For the minuet wave 5 to complete minute wave 5. So those remain in place. So if we can pick up the rally again, it should be pretty dynamic. And here, up here, way up here, you've got that minor degree. So there's plenty of room to the upside. And yet, here, this still sits, even in the futures market, 1.382, that's the primary B, which is out there. I'm leaving it there because it's just never even been challenged. here in the NASDAQ. Whereas in the S&P, it has. In the NASDAQ, it hasn't. And there it still sits. So resistance coming back up on the fib level. If we're done here, and I'm going to put this 4 back here, and this is going to be a 1 and a 2, then we're going to be looking for something to really start to take hold and move this, because what we'd be getting into, right? This is going to be, if this is minuet wave 4, then we're looking for sub-minuet wave 1, sub-minuet wave 2, sub-minuet wave 3 should go ding, 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 and take us higher. That's what I would be looking for. Failure to do so, which would suggest we are still going to be coming down. Then where's our support? 18,618 to 18,578. That's our first zone. And that would then complete, possibly, minuet wave 4. Then we have this next level. Now that's beyond here, but within here. So that all works, okay? That all fits in pretty cleanly. We're just going to hang out and we're going to see, what does the market want to do? All right, so moving averages here as well. We're taking a look. I'll just open this. Oh, come on, my computer. There you go. We have, again, the same deal. The 200's gone very flat, but it got broken on our after hour this afternoon. And so we have the 50 up here, which is starting to turn lower, taking a little bit longer. Not the same type of setup as we saw over in the S&P, but working its way there. So we have the 20 and the 13 below the 50 and still kind of turning lower. Keep an eye on that and just see how this all works out. Okay, again, let me just repeat what we're going to be looking for tomorrow. We have initial jobless claims, GDP, the first revision, advanced U.S. trade balance in goods, advanced retail inventories, advanced wholesale inventories, and pending home sales. And then again on Friday, personal income and spending plus PCE. And then lastly on Friday, which I did mention before, is the Chicago Business Barometer. So Thursday, Friday, some more stronger economic data that could really push the market around. All right, that's going to do it for today. Our next update will be on Thursday, May the 30th.